last stuff that you had set up here
Yes.
were these large diaphragm condensers over here. Now, are they why are they on top of each other this way?
I'm using something called MS, mid-side. Something I do a lot in narrow rooms.
Okay.
This room's not narrow, but I did have them spread left and right really wide to try to get a wide, this is gonna be the more kind of big, bombastic sound.
Sure.
I had them spread really wide. I just found that one of them, based off just the sound of the room, one of them was kind of dark and the other one was kind of bright. When I listened to them together, my ear kind of just got pulled into I didn't like hearing it so different.
Sure.
So I decided to do MS. MS is great. Basically, you've got your mid mic, which is in cardioid, facing your source or wherever, that's the other thing I do a lot in smaller rooms is I'll actually point my room mics the other way.
Okay.
It just helps give
Capture
it
more of the reflection than the initial.
Exactly. And the time it takes for the sound to get to it makes the room feel bigger.
Yep.
But in this scenario, you've got cardioid on top, or it could be on the bottom, doesn't matter. And then you've got figure 8, and the figure 8s are this way. And there's a little bit of a matrix, kind of a busing matrix to use the figure 8. You basically flip the side, you mult it off, flip the phase of one, and pan them left and right. And when you listen to just that, it's weird. And when you mono it, it disappears. It's exactly the same out of phase, so it disappears. When you start bringing the center mic in, the mid mic in, all of a sudden it goes from out of phase, kind of weird. All of a sudden it kind of starts coming in like this and just has a really nice stereo spread. And you use the center mic to determine how pseudo phase wide you want it.
Sure.
You can make it really wide and it kind of sounds a little out of phase, or you can just turn that way up and it sounds like almost a mono mic with some cool stuff on the sides that isn't very. I use this more for the wide. Okay. So if you listen to this on its own, it might be a little kind of pseudo stereo, but mixed in with the kit, it gives you that width that you might not have. The other thing is, not that this matters that much anymore, but if you were to listen to this through a mono source, this guy gets canceled out, all you hear is this. Sure. So it's not like your rooms disappear. If you just had like a pseudo stereo and you went down to mono, it's gone. Whereas at least you still have that character poking through. Sure. And with this, it's just, like I said, I usually compress this pretty hard. This is just to kind of get that big, kind of, we were talking about the John Bonham thing, the big kind of bombastic thing
Capture
to
the
mix
sound
in.
of the room.
Absolutely. Sure. And it's glue and it's excitement, and typically these mics, I usually use large diaphragm condensers. This is where I will go a little bit brighter, a little more full frequency. Okay. So yeah.
I've seen that used a lot in like churches for like the big choir feeling. Is that because of the setup? Yeah, well that's the other thing. If you want a wide stereo spread, and you've got one over here and you've got one over here on on a choir, you're only going to really get the left and the right. You then want to fill it in with a center mic, and then you've got a bunch of eyesores all over the place. Yeah. And again, the room might sound different. You might have a bunch of people over there and nobody over there, and then all of a sudden it starts sounding weird. So yeah, they'll use that, and it also only takes up one location, right? So if you're tight on space. You're using two of the same mics, but it's common to also use two different mics, maybe a cardioid condenser for the mid, and then maybe a ribbon mic because of its figure 8 capabilities. Yep. Sure. Yeah, you absolutely could. I mean, I typically use the same mic or similar mics. If this was an 87, would it kill us? No, not at all. It would probably be very, very similar, especially by the time I kind of squash everything together. But I've done this with ribbon mics before. Bayer makes, I think they make a cardioid ribbon mic, or it's like a hypercardioid ribbon mic that you can do the same kind of thing with. Or another technique is basically just taking two ribbon mics that are figure 8 and putting them like that and getting that spread. Yeah. So there's a bunch of different things. There's no right or wrong way, but this kind of gives you, it kind of fakes the width. Yeah. So although this is in one spot, when I solo them in there, you'll hear how wide they can be, and I'll actually pull the center mic down and push it back up so you can hear that weirdness.